There's a version of you hiding behind every excuse, every outburst, every quiet moment of self-sabotage. It whispers in the language of delay. It lingers like fog in the corners of your conviction. It feeds on doubt, hesitation, and the illusion that you have more time. This version of you, the shadow self, isn't evil, but it is dangerous. It's not a villain, but it is a thief. It steals clarity, robs action, and drains the will from your bones. It is the untrained mind, the undisciplined heart, the emotional reflex unchecked by reason or virtue. It thrives in half-decisions, in emotional detours, in everything that feels good but is built on nothing solid. It grows in silence when you're not watching. It thrives on passive living, on moments where you should have spoken but stayed silent, where you should have risen but stayed seated, where you should have tried but let fear talk you out of it. To live with virtue, as the Stoics teach, is not to make peace with this inner phantom. It is to call it by name, to turn and face it, to starve it of attention and replace it with deliberate, principled action. The only way to rise is to let it fall. The shadow doesn't scream. It whispers just enough doubt to make you question your path. It doesn't sabotage you loudly. It delays your greatness with comfort and rationalizations. The Stoics saw this clearly. They knew the enemy was not in the world. It was in the mind, in the repeated failure to command oneself. They wrote not to others, but to themselves, to remember the stakes of this internal struggle. When you arise in the morning, Marcus said, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. But how can you enjoy life if you spend each day shadowed by your own refusal to change? The Stoics didn't speak of self-improvement as the accumulation of achievements or polishing one's image for the admiration of others. They spoke of it as a kind of war, a war not waged in the streets, but within the heart and mind, a daily practice of dying to what is weak, false, reactive, and soft, and rising each day in what is strong, honest, rational, and enduring. This is no performance. It is a discipline of the soul. It is a lifelong apprenticeship to the virtues of reason, clarity, and action. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. And to begin to live, to really live, you must let the false version of yourself, the one who hides, avoids, and escapes, perish. You must walk into discomfort willingly, confront your lesser impulses daily, and train your heart to value what is right over what is easy. Only then can the disciplined self emerge, like a blade forged in fire, sharper and more purposeful with each test it endures. Let us begin, not with ease, but with earnestness, not with comfort, but with courage. Let us begin the war within." Chapter 1. The shadow is born from comfort. The shadow version of you was not born in pain. It was born in comfort. It was forged in those easy decisions you justified but never questioned. It thrives on ease, routines without purpose, pleasures without boundaries, and a life without discipline. It doesn't grow in one day. It grows in 1,000 little moments of surrender. It grows when we lie to ourselves in small, quiet ways that seem harmless at the time. Just one more hour of sleep. I'll start tomorrow. At least I'm not as bad as them. It's okay to take it easy today. These aren't harmless thoughts. They are your shadow's food. They nourish complacency, and complacency is the slow death of the self you were meant to become. The Stoics believed in harsh light, the kind that reveals all the places your character bends under pressure, all the fractures hidden beneath your polished excuses. They did not seek comfort. They tested their limits not in words, but in trials. Seneca didn't praise comfort. He praised discomfort embraced willingly because he wanted to starve the shadow. He knew the mind grows soft in ease. He understood that true strength only reveals itself in adversity, not theory. He trained his body and mind through voluntary hardship, not to suffer, but to awaken. He tasted poverty so his spirit would never grow entitled. The goal was not self-punishment, it was self-reclamation, a retrieval of power from the trivial pleasures that disguise themselves as necessities. When you willingly deny yourself luxury, you remember what you truly control. When you step away from ease, you walk into self-mastery. Each discomfort becomes a mirror that reflects your true capacity. Comfort makes the shadow bold. It speaks louder when it's not challenged. It creeps into your habits, shapes your responses, and frames your perception of difficulty as something to be avoided instead of something to be mastered. It tells you that you're doing fine, that life is long, that time can be wasted without penalty. It whispers that effort can wait, that your potential can sit idle one more day, and that dreams can live forever in the realm of someday. It feeds off of that whisper, growing stronger with every moment you choose ease over evolution. But every time you agree, your shadow grows thicker, darker, more persuasive. Its words begin to sound like wisdom, its hesitations begin to feel like caution, and its procrastination begins to wear the mask of patience. The Stoic knows that comfort must be earned through virtue, not indulged through vice. Comfort, when pursued recklessly, erodes discipline and makes mediocrity feel like a sanctuary. It is not about denying pleasure, but about understanding what pleasure costs you when taken without principle. Each indulgence without direction chips away at the muscles of your will. When comfort becomes habitual, it robs you of the grit required to face the unknown. It removes the pressure that forges strength and replaces purpose with passivity. It dulls your edge and replaces hunger with apathy. When life becomes too soft, the soul grows stiff. True comfort, in the Stoic sense, is peace of mind born from inner alignment, not temporary relief purchased by giving in to the easy path. Real comfort is earned only after you've wrestled with discomfort, stood tall in pain, and lived in service of something greater than convenience. Comfort is not the enemy, but it is a dangerous reward when unearned. It can become a silent anchor, keeping you docked while the winds of your ambition beg you to sail. It whispers not only in moments of fatigue, but in moments of possibility, urging you to take the path that demands the least of you. What begins as a temporary rest becomes a permanent state of inertia. What begins as recovery becomes a retreat from responsibility. It seduces you into surrendering your potential inch by inch, under the guise of rest, caution, or even self-care. It wraps itself around your goals like vines, slowing progress until it feels natural to stop striving altogether. It invites complacency and weakens your edge. It dulls your sense of urgency and tricks you into believing there will always be more time, more chances, more tomorrows. It tells you that preparation can wait, that ambition can be delayed, that change is something to consider rather than pursue. It makes you forget that life is perishable, and each moment squandered in comfort is a moment lost to growth. Each hour spent catering to the shadow is one more hour unclaimed by the self you were born to become. The more you feed the shadow with comfort, the more it speaks with your voice, wears your habits, and slowly convinces you that this is who you are. It mimics your logic, borrows your dreams, and cloaks stagnation in the language of self-care. Its favorite lie is that there is no hurry, but there is always urgency in the work of virtue. You don't even notice the change, only the results of your inaction. It doesn't yell, it hums. It sings you to sleep with justifications. It weaves itself into your identity like ivy around a crumbling wall, silent and suffocating. It changes your standards while convincing you nothing has changed. It takes up space in your thinking until discomfort feels like danger and action feels like risk. But the Stoic sees through the fog. The Stoic knows that peace is not found in fleeing discomfort, but in transforming through it. The Stoic breaks that trance with choice, with challenge, with clarity. They don't wait for inspiration. They build systems. They recondition their instincts with every small defiance of ease. A shorter shower, an earlier wake-up, a difficult conversation faced head-on, a meal skipped to test the will, a breath held longer to train control. Each moment of chosen difficulty carves away at the shadow and sharpens resolve. They train their attention to ignore the noise of indulgence and follow the compass of virtue. They use structure to liberate themselves, because freedom comes not from doing whatever you feel, but from choosing what is right regardless of how you feel. They do not wait to feel like changing. They act in the direction of discipline before emotion has a say. In a world full of noise, the Stoic listens to reason. In a world full of delay, the Stoic chooses now. In a culture that celebrates softness, the Stoic cultivates strength. They don't chase ease, they pursue excellence. They remember that the reward is not relief, but becoming someone worthy of peace. They do not fear the fire. They walk through it to burn away what doesn't belong. The cost of comfort is too high when paid with potential, so they rise. Start your morning with one action that breaks comfort's hold. Cold water shower, a short walk, push-ups, sit-ups, breathing exercises, a handwritten list of your duties. Then take it a step further. Speak a hard truth to yourself in the mirror. Make your bed with intention. Review your values aloud. That moment of resistance is where the real you wakes up, but that moment only lasts if you turn it into momentum. Follow that first act with a sequence of deliberate movements that signal to your body and mind. Today, I am not retreating. Even a 5-minute morning of resistance sets the tone for the next 12 hours. By choosing discomfort early, you inoculate yourself against the lazy voice that arrives later. Each morning is a battlefield, and your first victory begins with a refusal to submit to ease. Chapter 2. Excuses are the armor of the weak. The shadow self is skilled at language. It is a master rhetorician, fluent in the dialect of delay and hesitation. It knows just how to phrase things to make cowardice sound like reason and fear sound like foresight. Now's not the right time. I'll be better when I feel better. This isn't who I really am. These phrases sound responsible on the surface, but they're engineered to keep you still. They provide a sense of safety while silently binding your hands behind your back. But excuses are the armor of the weak, and armor weighs you down. It restricts movement. It prevents growth. It becomes a prison made of your own logic. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." He didn't add disclaimers. He didn't say, "if it feels right," or "if the timing is perfect." He didn't wait for the mood to align. He acted, because action is the language of strength. That is the Stoic's advantage, decisiveness. The Stoic doesn't sit back and hope for clarity to arrive. They summon it through motion. Inaction is not neutrality, it is erosion. The shadow delays, the Stoic decides. The Stoic sees hesitation as a signal, not a sentence. They investigate it, challenge it, override it, not to be reckless, but to ensure that fear never sits in the driver's seat. They do not trust hesitation unless it is rooted in principle. Most often it is not. It is rooted in fear, masked as caution. And the Stoic knows that living from fear is dying while still alive. Excuses allow the shadow self to survive. They're like shields made of fog, insubstantial but blinding. They comfort you in the short term and rob you in the long run. An excuse always offers temporary peace, but delivers long-term damage. You can't see your future clearly when all you stare at is a reason not to begin. It's like trying to navigate your life with your back to the horizon. The shadow wants you to analyze forever, to hesitate until the moment is gone, to replace movement with thought loops. It thrives in indecision. And while you're convincing yourself that waiting is wise, the moment that could have changed your life quietly slips away. The longer you wait behind an excuse, the more your true self fades. It's not a loud disappearance. It's a quiet fading into a lesser version of what you could have been. That dimming of your potential is often imperceptible until it's cemented in habit. And the worst part? You often don't realize it until much later, when regret has already laid its roots deep and bitter. You feel the ache of all the moments you were meant to show up for, and didn't. The courage you don't act on today becomes confidence you won't have tomorrow. It doesn't stay neutral, it decays. A single missed opportunity might not seem like much, but 10, 20, 100. They become the scaffolding of a life built far below your capabilities. They shape the direction of your life not by accident, but by slow surrender. Self-respect comes not from how others treat you, but from how often you silence your own inner coward. It's earned in the unseen acts of defiance against the voice that says you're not ready. Every time you act in spite of fear, in spite of uncertainty, in spite of the desire to stay hidden, you earn the right to trust yourself. Trust is built, like anything else, through repetition. And each time you act when the excuse says wait, you chip away at the false armor and reveal something stronger underneath. You start to recognize your own power, not as a potential, but as a practice. Bit by bit, you make fear your servant rather than your master. Bit by bit, you stop living in reaction and start living with direction. You go from defending a version of yourself to building a version that no longer needs defense. That's not just discipline, that's liberation, that's transformation in motion. Every time you hear yourself making an excuse, pause, take a breath. Recognize it not as truth, but as a signal that you're standing at a crossroads between weakness and growth. Excuses are mental reflexes, often automatic, but not immutable. They can be reprogrammed. Replace that excuse with a reason to act, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it feels unnatural. I can't go to the gym becomes I can train my discipline by going anyway, or I don't feel motivated to work becomes that's exactly why I must work now, to build resilience. Turn each excuse into a doorway to action. This habit of inversion doesn't just change what you do, it reshapes how you see difficulty. Over time, your default response to challenge won't be retreat. It will be responsibility. That's how strength is built in real time. Chapter 3. Pleasure is a trap disguised as reward. The shadow loves pleasure because it knows that overindulgence weakens the will. It doesn't need you to be reckless. It just needs you to be consistently undisciplined. It needs you to reach for what's easy instead of what's necessary. It needs your attention to drift toward what's gratifying, what's available, what's familiar. Food, entertainment, gossip, lust. When these become your comforts instead of your tools, they chain you. They shift from being moments of rest to habits of escape. They slowly become your master, not through force, but through subtle erosion of strength. The shadow doesn't use pleasure in bursts. It uses it in repetition. It rewards you with short-term dopamine while quietly bankrupting your long-term discipline. It seduces you into patterns of indulgence until those patterns form your personality, until comfort becomes your compass and desire becomes your voice. The Stoics never said pleasure was wrong, but they warned that uncontrolled pleasure leads to dependency, and dependency is the opposite of freedom. Pleasure without restraint is a prison with velvet walls, soft, appealing, but inescapable to the undisciplined. True pleasure, according to the Stoics, is not to be found in the thing itself, but in the way it is approached, with reason, with moderation, with detachment. It's not the pleasure that corrupts, it's the attachment to it. It's the inability to say no that makes you a slave to what was meant to serve you. To enjoy something without needing it is the mark of strength. To hold something in your hand and know you could drop it without pain is freedom. To be able to walk away from it, even when every part of you craves it, is power. That strength doesn't scream. It whispers, "You are not controlled." To be able to decline something pleasurable and feel stronger for it, that is the muscle the shadow wants, left untrained. Because every time you say no to temptation, you remind the shadow who's in charge. Every time you step away from craving and choose clarity, you reclaim a piece of your sovereignty. You chip away at dependence. You assert that your dignity matters more than your momentary comfort. Epictetus asked, "Do you wish to be free? Then learn to discipline your desires." He didn't mean you must live like a monk. He meant you must rule your passions, not serve them. He didn't mean to eliminate joy, but to liberate it from addiction. He wasn't preaching denial, but direction. Freedom is not doing whatever you want. That's chaos. That's enslavement to every craving and mood. That's a ship with no rudder, tossed around by every emotional wave. That's not a life, it's a reaction. Real freedom is being ruled by reason, not by craving. It is living in deliberate alignment with your highest values. It is the ability to delay gratification, to detach from compulsion, to choose your higher self over your lower urges. It is the courage to sacrifice the easy now for the honorable later. It is having the strength to choose what is meaningful over what is momentary. It is wanting what is good, not merely what feels good. Cravings will come, but they don't have to command. They can knock, but you don't have to answer. You can stand tall at the threshold and say, "Not today." The shadow self will always tell you, "You deserve this." It wraps indulgence in the language of self-love. It says, "You've had a hard day," or "just this once," or "You've earned a break." It appeals to your ego while disarming your will. It flatters you to lower your guard. But what you deserve, in Stoic terms, is not another escape. You deserve to live in harmony with reason. You deserve a life guided by principle, not ruled by impulse. To live with integrity, strength, and clarity. You don't deserve the sugar crash, the shame after the binge, or the fog of mindless consumption. You deserve the sharpness of a disciplined mind, the peace of a heart unowned by impulse, the respect of knowing your choices are your own. You deserve to be clear, decisive, capable, and calm. You deserve to look at your reflection and know that your desires don't own you. You own them. That is not austerity. It is autonomy. Pleasure that makes you weaker is not a gift. It's a bribe. And the cost is always your strength. When you pay that cost, you do not buy happiness. You sell your freedom. And nothing is worth that trade. Delay one pleasure each day. Start small, but be deliberate. Discipline grows in precise, intentional resistance. Skip the dessert, not to punish yourself, but to remind yourself that you control your cravings, not the other way around. Turn off the show early, not because you don't enjoy it, but because discipline is stronger when it's inconvenient and uncomfortable. Decline gossip, not because silence is easier, but because integrity is harder and far more rewarding. Say no to the mindless scroll, the extra bite, the effortless escape, the short-term destructive pleasures, the alcohol, the cigarette, the recreational drugs. Even turning away from a meaningless conversation or putting your phone down for 10 more minutes of silence builds your self-governance. Each of these choices is a vote for the person you are becoming. Every time you pause before indulging, every time you disrupt an unconscious habit, you build the muscle of self-command. These aren't just moments of resistance, they're moments of transformation. They train your brain to resist the easy way out. They teach your soul to seek what lasts, not just what satisfies. Reclaim your will from the grip of impulse by treating each temptation as a training ground, as a moment to prove to yourself that your higher self is present and active. The shadow feeds on repetition, so your refusal must become a habit as well. You don't need to destroy your desires. You need to dominate them, redirect them, refine them. Desire without discipline is fire without boundaries. But desire channeled by reason, that is a forge. That begins with one conscious refusal a day. Just one. Start where it stings. Say no where it's easiest to say yes. These small moments are not minor. They are proof that you're rewriting who is in charge, you or your shadow. They are not footnotes, they are foundations. And the more you practice choosing discomfort over drift, the more you become immune to the whisper of indulgence. In those refusals, you are not just resisting, you are building. And what you are building is unshakable strength. Chapter 4. The Shadow Hates Responsibility. Blame is the shadow's favorite tool. It points fingers to your past, your parents, your pain, your circumstances, your surroundings, even your own former self. It says, "It's not your fault." It wraps helplessness in the language of justification. It convinces you that waiting is wisdom and that delay is discernment. It seduces you into paralysis, dressed up as reflection. It gives you a reason to stand still while appearing thoughtful. But the Stoic says, maybe it isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility. Because responsibility isn't about blame, it's about ownership. Ownership is the gateway to autonomy. It's about stepping into your power to direct your life, no matter where the starting point is. You may not have created the mess, but it is still your duty to rise from it. You may not be responsible for what happened to you, but you are responsible for who you become next. Responsibility is power. It means the power to respond, to act instead of react, to choose instead of collapse, to turn from passive endurance to active engagement. It is the foundation of personal freedom and the end of mental slavery. It is the moment when you reclaim the pen and begin to write your own story, not the version that was written for you by pain, by fear, or by others, but the version authored by clarity and purpose. When you accept full responsibility, you kill the victim in you. You kill the shadow that waits for the world to improve before you will. You destroy the script that says you are a product of conditions rather than a creator of character. You cut away the part of yourself that says, I'll change when they change, or I'll move when life gets easier. You eliminate the internal language of passivity. You stop outsourcing your strength. You stop bargaining with fate. You stop hiding behind pain and start transforming through it. You stop waiting for someone to rescue you and realize you were the rescuer all along. You become an agent of change, not a passive character in a story someone else is writing. You become an architect of resilience. You build yourself through effort, through friction, through the raw materials of hardship. Marcus Aurelius never blamed his fate. He ruled an empire during chaos, the plague, betrayal, war, and loss. Still, he wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He didn't say this in comfort. He said it in combat, in the thick of difficulty. He faced betrayal not with bitterness, but with clarity. His life was a testament that peace does not require peace around you, only peace within you. He did not wait for conditions to improve. He improved his condition through choice, reflection, and discipline. He reminded himself daily that even emperors are not owed ease. He accepted pain, fatigue, and instability as his practice ground. This kind of responsibility is a posture of internal command, a daily refusal to be defined by externals. It's the battle stance of the Stoic who does not flinch at difficulty, because they have trained themselves to be harder than the hardship. They meet misfortune not as victims, but as students and builders. They see crisis as classroom. They see struggle as curriculum. Responsibility is not a burden. It is a sword, a tool for cutting away excuses, a blade for shaping character, a weapon against stagnation and the quiet decay of apathy. It does not weigh you down, it sharpens you. It does not trap you, it frees you. It doesn't close doors, it opens the ones you were too afraid to knock on. It slices through indecision, through complaint, through delay. It cuts the ties to victimhood, self-pity, and hesitation. Wield it not as a punishment, but as your permission to act, to grow, to rise, to reclaim territory within yourself that you had abandoned, to take back the hours you surrendered to excuses, to return to the inner throne where your higher self belongs. When you take full responsibility, you don't become heavier. You become dangerous to the forces that once held you back. Fear retreats. Doubt loses its grip. The shadow that whispered limitations starts to shrink. You become a force in your own right, not because you have all the answers, but because you've chosen to be accountable regardless of uncertainty. You become someone who cannot be manipulated, someone who cannot be swayed by external noise. You stop begging life for leniency and instead shape life with your own hands. You become sovereign, not in the sense of dominance over others, but in the truest form of rule, mastery over self. You become a leader of your thoughts, a commander of your conduct. You stop reacting blindly and start responding with purpose. You begin to carry a presence that isn't loud, but unshakable. A presence built not on bravado, but on self-possession. You operate with a grounded stillness that cannot be disturbed by storms. You stop chasing circumstances and start anchoring in principle. And sovereignty begins where blame ends. It begins when you stop asking, "Who caused this?" and start asking, "What will I do about it?" Not in control of everything, but in control of yourself. That is power the shadow can never take from you. That is the foundation upon which everything else is built, the ground where character stands tall while chaos passes like wind. At the end of each day, write one thing you could have handled better. Make it a ritual, not a punishment, but a practice in clarity. Don't blame, don't justify, don't rationalize why it wasn't your fault or why it wasn't that important. Just own it, look it in the eye, sit with it for a moment. Ask yourself what belief, emotion, or impulse led to that choice, and whether it aligns with who you want to become. Ask what the Stoic within you would have done. Then plan how to be stronger next time. Make the correction specific. Write down the behavior you'll adopt instead, the words you'll say differently, or the pause you'll take next time emotion tries to lead. Over time, this practice becomes a sharpening stone for your character. Each evening reflection is a quiet act of self-leadership, a conversation between who you are and who you're becoming. Chapter 5. Identity is built, not inherited. The shadow self clings to identity as if it were fixed. I've always been this way. I'm not the kind of person who... That's just how I am. These phrases cement your weaknesses. They keep you static. They create a narrative in which change feels like betrayal instead of evolution. The shadow loves labels, because labels lock you in. They let you build a home in limitation and call it authenticity. But the Stoic knows, identity is not discovered, it is developed. It is not inherited, it is shaped. The shadow uses your past to trap your future. The Stoic uses the present to carve a new self, but identity is sculpted. The Stoics treated life like a workshop for character. They saw each day as an invitation to chisel away at ignorance, weakness, and vice. You don't inherit discipline. You forge it through discomfort. You don't stumble into wisdom. You walk toward it deliberately, step by step, choice by choice. Identity is not a fixed state. It is a living sculpture, formed by the hammer of your habits and the chisel of your convictions. Every decision, every sacrifice, every refusal to be ruled by emotion adds shape to the person you're becoming. Your shadow is who you've been. It is the sum of your autopilot days and your silent surrenders. It is the accumulation of every time you chose what was comfortable over what was right, every time you remained silent when you should have spoken, every time you looked away from who you were meant to become. Your virtue is who you're becoming. It is the version of you that shows up when it's hard, when it's boring, when it's painful, and especially when no one is watching. It's the you that holds the line when your emotions scream for release. It's the voice of reason that cuts through the chaos, the strength that emerges not in triumph, but in restraint. Don't let past patterns dictate future principles. Just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's true. Just because it's been repeated doesn't mean it's destined. Habits may shape your tendencies, but they don't define your limits. You're not bound by history. You're guided by vision. The Stoic doesn't ask, "Who have I been?" They ask, "Who am I becoming?" They do not fear being inconsistent with their past, if it means becoming consistent with their potential. They don't worship consistency. They pursue transformation. To them, each day is a fresh battle to be better, not a performance to stay the same. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." In that simple instruction is a lifelong practice. You must first be clear, utterly clear, on what kind of person you wish to become. Not vague wishes, not general hopes, but precise definitions. Who do you want to be under pressure, in solitude, in success, and in suffering? Define your ideal self clearly, then align your actions ruthlessly. Let that image become your compass. Do not negotiate with mediocrity. Don't let your feelings vote on your behavior. Act as if the future version of you is already watching. Because they are. They're watching through the consistency of your efforts. They are being built by everything you do today, not tomorrow, not next year, today. Choose one trait you admire: courage, temperance, wisdom. Define what it looks like in behavior, then act in alignment with it all day. Speak with it, walk with it, decide with it, then reflect honestly. Did your actions match your ideal? Where did you compromise? Where did you rise? If you failed, it's not final, it's instruction. If you succeeded, don't gloat, refine. The Stoic path is not about perfection, it's about progress made visible through self-discipline. And each day you train this way, you weaken the shadow and strengthen the soul. This is how you kill who you were and become who you were meant to be. Chapter 6. You are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are not commands. They are suggestions. They are not facts. They are impulses, fragments, echoes of past patterns, emotional residue, and momentary impressions. Your shadow self thrives when you believe every thought you think, when you accept each inner whisper as gospel truth. It wants you to feel that every anxious idea is a warning, every angry thought is righteous, and every craving is urgent. But the Stoics remind us, the mind is a tool, not a tyrant. It is meant to serve your reason, not enslave your purpose. You are not your thoughts, you are the observer of them. You are the architect who decides which thought deserves your energy, your attention, your action, and which thought should be released without reaction. Most people live reactively, as if every thought is an instruction, as if every inner signal must become an outer behavior. They say, "I feel anxious," so something must be wrong, or I'm angry, so I must express it, or I feel tired, so I must rest, without examining the source or the truth of it. But the Stoic pauses. The Stoic interrogates the thought. The Stoic steps between the feeling and the follow-through. They ask, is this helpful? Is this in alignment with who I aspire to be? Does this thought deserve to guide my next step? You do not need to obey every mental sensation. You are not obligated to act on every idea that enters your mind. The power is in the pause. The strength is in the space between stimulus and response. In that space lives your freedom. In that space lives the Stoic. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He did not say eliminate thought, but to master it. He did not preach suppression, but selection. You must learn to be a gatekeeper, not a prisoner. Let the unworthy thought pass like a cloud. Let the thought driven by fear, ego, or insecurity drift by without attachment. You do not need to resist every thought violently. You simply need to stop feeding the ones that make you weak. Thought is only dangerous when followed blindly, when it becomes law without being cross-examined by reason. When you say, "I am sad," or "I am overwhelmed," you blend identity with emotion. You give temporary feelings the keys to your permanent self, but you are not sadness. You are not overwhelm. You are the awareness beneath it. You are the presence that notices, the clarity that can choose. Shift your language to say, sadness is present, or overwhelm is rising. This linguistic shift separates your core self from the storm passing through it. And with separation comes control. With distance comes clarity. The Stoics did not avoid emotion, they studied it. They trained their reason to rule it. They knew emotion can be a teacher, but never a king. Your shadow will always try to flood your mind with noise. It will fill your inner world with fear-based thoughts, ego-driven comparisons, irrational assumptions, and catastrophized fantasies. It knows that the more chaotic your internal environment becomes, the more likely you are to cling to the nearest emotion rather than choose a response rooted in virtue. But your job is not to stop the tide. You cannot stop thought. You cannot silence every irrational impulse, and you don't need to. Your job is to stand above it, to watch, to wait, to choose, to look down from the mental balcony and say, "This one I will entertain, that one I will release," to step into the thought that builds strength and step away from the thought that breaks it. You are the gatekeeper of your mental fortress, and not every knock deserves an open door. You don't have to let every visitor into your inner temple. Some thoughts are thieves dressed as guests. Every morning, sit in silence for 2 minutes. Watch your thoughts like traffic. Let them come. Let them go. Do not chase them. Do not judge them. Just observe. Watch how some thoughts try to command your urgency. Notice how others pass quietly, unnoticed, slipping away when they find no audience. This is how you weaken their grip, by starving them of attention. Then write down one thought you want to keep, and one you choose to let go. Let this become your morning discipline. You can expand it to 5 minutes, then 10. Over time, you'll begin to recognize the regulars, the same fear that returns every day in new clothing, the same insecurity that hides behind different circumstances. You'll develop a kind of familiarity with your own mental patterns, and with that familiarity, you'll gain mastery. Practice this daily. Let it be as natural as brushing your teeth. Mental hygiene matters. The mind left untrained becomes a playground for the shadow, but the mind that is trained becomes a battlefield where wisdom wins. Over time, you will stop being dragged by thought and start directing it. You will no longer be the puppet of the mind. You will become its master, not by force, but by steadiness, not by control, but by awareness. That's the Stoic path, not to control everything, but to master what you can, your mind. And once you own your mind, you begin to reclaim your entire life. You don't just think differently, you live differently. Chapter 7. What you feed grows, what you starve dies. The shadow self does not need power to thrive. It only needs your attention. It doesn't need to be strong, it just needs to be entertained. It grows in proportion to how often you indulge it. Feed it with anger, and it becomes rage. Feed it with self-pity, and it becomes despair. Feed it with envy, and it becomes bitterness. Feed it with fear, and it becomes paralysis. Your shadow is nourished not by force, but by focus, by what you allow to linger in your mind. The Stoic understood this long before modern neuroscience confirmed it. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Repetition becomes reality. Attention becomes identity. The more you return to a thought, the more it becomes a habit. The more you dwell in a mood, the more it becomes your home. And the shadow is always waiting for you to return to it. Every moment of attention is a form of training. Every internal monologue is a rehearsal. You are either strengthening the shadow or strengthening the sovereign. You are never neutral. Every time you replay a grudge, complain about your circumstances, fantasize about revenge, or imagine worst-case scenarios, you reinforce the shadow's grip. These thoughts might feel familiar, but familiarity is not proof of truth. They become mental grooves that deepen with every repetition. On the other hand, every time you return to clarity, practice gratitude, slow your breath, or choose restraint, you carve new patterns into your character. You teach yourself to respond instead of react. The Stoic doesn't wait for the shadow to shrink. They starve it into weakness. They do not fight it directly. They simply refuse to feed it. And what you don't feed cannot grow. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." What he meant was this: the untrained mind becomes a manufacturing plant for pain. It generates suffering where none exists. It fabricates catastrophes, amplifies insults, and creates monsters out of shadows. But the trained mind becomes a sanctuary. It can see the same external event with different internal eyes. You are not obligated to rehearse your suffering. You are not required to replay old wounds as if they are entertainment. You can direct your attention away from it, not through ignorance but through discipline. The shadow thrives in repetition, so interrupt the pattern. You don't have to solve every thought. You just have to stop feeding the ones that sabotage your peace. What you feed grows. What you starve dies. This is not just a metaphor, it is law. Your attention is not infinite. It is a limited resource. Spend it like gold. Guard it like fire in a storm. Give your energy to thoughts that elevate, not erode. Focus is not just about productivity, it is about protection. Strengthen the habits of patience, presence, and perspective by investing in them each day. Do not water the weeds of your character. Do not gossip, overanalyze, or repeat fears aloud. Let them wither. Let them fall away in silence. When the shadow knocks, don't invite it in with your attention. Let it stand outside until it fades into irrelevance. Tonight, write down 3 things you gave energy to that made you weaker, whether they were thoughts, behaviors, distractions, or conversations. Then write 3 things you'll feed tomorrow that will make you stronger. Be specific. Make your mind a garden and your attention the sunlight. Where your attention goes, your character follows. The shadow only survives where the light of focus is absent, and with enough light, even the deepest shadows vanish. Chapter 8. Discipline is the death of the shadow. The shadow self cannot coexist with discipline. Discipline is its opposite. The shadow thrives on impulse. Discipline demands intention. It feeds on comfort. Discipline embraces discomfort. The shadow lives off whatever is easy, fast, and unearned. But discipline speaks a different language. It says, "Do what is necessary, not what is convenient." It is a posture of will, a daily declaration that you are not ruled by urges, but by ideals. It does not need applause. It thrives in solitude. Discipline is the gate the shadow cannot pass through. The Stoics were warriors of discipline. Marcus Aurelius woke each day and reminded himself that the body may resist effort, but the mind must rise above complaint. He reminded himself that kings must first rule themselves. Epictetus, born a slave, built freedom through structure. He understood that self-rule begins where impulse ends. Discipline was not their punishment, it was their proof. Proof that character could be sculpted regardless of birth, station, or fate. The disciplined person does not live without temptation. They simply deny it a seat at the table. They recognize it, acknowledge it, and then dismiss it, without drama, without negotiation. Discipline is more than a schedule, it's an identity. It's not just what you do, it's who you become by doing it repeatedly. It's the repetition of virtue, the conscious rejection of vice. It is waking when you want to sleep, speaking truth when silence would be easier, doing the hard thing because it's aligned with who you aim to be. It is honoring your standards when shortcuts whisper their lies. Each small act of discipline is a dagger to the shadow. You kill it not in a grand gesture, but in consistent defiance. Every choice to act from reason instead of reflex cuts the shadow down by inches. Don't wait for motivation, it is undependable. Train in motion. Train under boredom, under fatigue, under doubt. Do the reps, even when they feel dull. Say no to the impulse, even when no one's watching, especially then. That's where discipline is truly forged. In the quiet, unrewarded moments where only your conscience knows. Choose the path of structure, even when your mood begs for escape. Discipline is not about being rigid, it's about being ready. It prepares you to act, not to flinch. It transforms effort into armor, repetition into resilience, and integrity into instinct. Tonight, ask, what did I do today that was hard, but right? What comfort did I reject for the sake of clarity? These answers are the proof that you are not a servant of the shadow, but a sculptor of your soul. Chapter 9. Purpose silences the inner noise. The mind without purpose is like a battlefield without a commander, chaotic, reactive, vulnerable. It fires in all directions, wasting energy on threats that don't exist and problems that never arrive. The shadow thrives in this mental fog. It whispers half-truths and distractions, knowing a mind without direction will grab anything for meaning. It wants you distracted. It wants you endlessly scrolling, comparing, doubting, re-evaluating every small failure as a sign you should quit. It wants you lost in comparison, doubt, and scattered ambition. But once you know your purpose, everything else gets quieter. The noise loses its gravity. The distractions lose their pull. The cravings lose their bite. Purpose is the compass that keeps you from drifting. It is the anchor that steadies the storm within. The Stoics believed that a meaningful life wasn't found. It was made. Through virtue, through service, through effort aligned with truth. Purpose to them wasn't a grand mission statement. It was a daily direction, a way of moving through the world that reflected your highest values. A man who rises with the intent to be useful, just, courageous, and wise lives with more focus than someone chasing a vague idea of happiness. Happiness is a byproduct. Purpose is the cause. You can't chase joy directly, it runs. But when you move toward purpose, joy often walks beside you quietly. Without purpose, pain feels pointless. It becomes an accusation, a punishment, a question with no answer. With purpose, pain becomes fuel. It becomes part of the building process, part of the test that reveals what you're made of. Without purpose, discomfort is punishment, With purpose, discomfort is preparation. Each hard thing you endure becomes part of your shaping. The shadow can manipulate a person who lacks aim. It can dress comfort up as rest, laziness as self-care, and avoidance as wisdom. But it loses influence over the one who knows where they're going and why it matters. The one with purpose doesn't need to be perfect. They only need to remain aligned. Ask yourself, what am I here to build? Who am I here to serve? What am I willing to suffer for? Let your answers refine you. Let them direct your focus and filter your decisions. A noisy mind is often a purposeless one, and a purposeful soul makes less noise because it's busy doing the work. Chapter 10. The Final Death of the Shadow. The shadow cannot survive in the presence of total truth. It feeds on avoidance, on compromise, on your refusal to face what needs to be faced. It relies on you looking away just long enough for it to slip back in. It survives in the spaces where you say, "It's not that bad," or "maybe later." To kill the shadow finally, you must be ruthless with reality. Look at yourself without flinching. Look at your habits, your excuses, your repeated self-betrayals. Look at the moments you chose silence over courage, comfort over conviction, distraction over discipline. Then stop pretending. Pretending is the fertilizer of the shadow. Truth is the blade that cuts it down. The final death of the shadow comes through full ownership, not just of your choices, but of your identity, not just of what you've done, but of who you've become. Say it clearly. I am not who I was. I am not a slave to what I used to tolerate. I do not serve the weaker voice within me. I do not dress fear up as reason or hesitation up as wisdom. I serve the truth that demands I grow, the truth that dares me to rise, the truth that strips away illusion, comfort and justification until only the essential self remains. This does not mean you won't struggle. It means the struggle will no longer own you. It means you'll stop labeling struggle as failure. You'll see it as your gym, your forge, your field. You will fall, but you will rise without excuses. You will fail, but you will not lie about it. You will doubt, but you will not retreat. You will see doubt for what it is, a signal, not a sentence. The shadow may still whisper, but you will no longer answer. You'll hear the voice, but it will be faint, because you have trained your ears to listen only to what builds. To live as a Stoic is to live in active rebellion against the false self, to wage war against delusion and settle only for clarity, to live in clarity, courage and command, to see discipline not as a punishment, but as a privilege. You do not kill the shadow once, you kill it daily, with every breath of self-honesty, with every act of virtue, with every moment you choose discipline over distraction. You do it when no one is watching. You do it when it's least convenient. That is the final death of the shadow. It is the quiet erosion of its power through your consistent refusal to return to it. So choose, one final time, and again tomorrow. Kill the shadow. Live in the light, not once, every day, with your breath, with your belief, with your behavior. This is not a moment, it's a movement. The shadow dies in pieces, but so does the old you. Let it fall, so you can rise.